Who are El-Aurians in Star Trek, and how long does Guinan's race live for? On Star Trek: The Next Generation, Whoopi Goldberg's Guinan introduced a new alien species called the El-Aurians. Guinan joined TNG at the start of the show's second season after Whoopi Goldberg reached out to producers requesting a role on the series. Guinan was an enigma upon her introduction, and TNG took its time revealing more about her, only dropping teases and hints about her past. Guinan had known Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, for some time, and she was one of the few people he trusted for honest advice. After appearing in 29 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation and 2 of the TNG films, Guinan returned in Star Trek: Picard Season 2. In 2 different timelines, Guinan, portrayed in the past by Ito Aguirre, helped Admiral Picard and his motley crew restore Star Trek's proper prime timeline after it was changed by Q. John Delancey. Guinan remains Star Trek's most well-known El-Aurian, although much about the long-lived species is still a mystery. Only 3 other named El-Aurians have appeared on screen, including the main antagonist of Star Trek Generations, Dr. Tolian Saran, Malcolm McDowell. Since Star Trek: The Next Generation introduced the El-Aurians, the franchise has slowly revealed more about the mysterious species. They were a race of listeners who spread out across the galaxy. Because they appeared indistinguishable from humans, El-Aurians were able to blend in among humans, as Guinan did during Earth's 19th century. El-Aurians aged extremely slowly by human standards and could live for several centuries. They also possessed a limited form of telepathy and could sense disturbances in space and time, such as when Guinan felt the universe shift in TNG's Yesterday's Enterprise. Sometime in their history, the El-Aurians found conflict with the Q continuum, resulting in a lengthy Cold War that eventually led to a truce. Despite this, Guinan and Q remained adversaries at least through the 24th century, although the exact nature of their dealings remains unknown. During the 23rd century, the Borg attacked the El-Aurians, destroying many of their cities and decimating their population. Many of the surviving El-Aurians became refugees, and in Star Trek Generations, the USS Enterprise B rescued a group of these refugees that included Guinan and Dr. Saran. Star Trek has never expressly stated the average lifespan of the El-Aurians, but they have been known to live for several centuries. In the Star Trek: The Next Generation 2-parter Time's Arrow, Captain Picard met Guinan on Earth in the late 19th century, making her at least 500 years old by the 24th century. In TNG Season 6, Episode 7, Rascals, Guinan mentioned that her father was around 700 years old, establishing that El-Aurians could live at least that long. Introduced in Star Trek: Lower Decks Season 5, Star Trek's most recent El-Aurian, Commander Cassia NOX, is also the youngest. When LT Beckett Mariner, Tawny Newsome, questions if NOX is, like, 400 years old, NOX replies that she's in her 30s. This prompts Mariner to respond that a young El-Aurian is just a regular person. However, this may not be entirely true, as it's unclear whether age affects the El-Aurians' abilities to sense disturbances in the space-time continuum. In Star Trek: Picard Season 2, Episode 1, The Stargazer, Guinan suggested that El-Aurians had some choice about when and how they aged. Despite their longevity, El-Aurians reached adulthood at about the same time as humans, explaining why Commander NOX looks and acts like a human in her 30s, despite being practically an infant by El-Aurian standards. Since Guinan's introduction on Star Trek: The Next Generation, the El-Aurians have become one of Star Trek's most fascinating and mysterious alien species. In the Star Trek universe, El-Aurians are an enigmatic, ancient, and wise race of listeners. They are perhaps most famously represented by the character Guinan, portrayed by Whoopi Goldberg in Star Trek: The Next Generation. While they are not as prominent as other major species like the Vulcans or Klingons, the El-Aurians possess a fascinating depth that makes them central to several key episodes and story arcs, especially through Guinan's interactions with the crew of the Enterprise D. Origins and history of the El-Aurians. The El-Aurians come from a distant star system in a region of space that is largely unexplored in Star Trek canon. Despite their enigmatic nature, the defining characteristic of El-Aurians is their ability to listen, not just to spoken words, but to the emotional and temporal undercurrents around them. They are deeply attuned to the flow of time and space, sometimes having an almost precognitive sense of events or disturbances. This has led them to be considered a race of listeners, a trait which allows them to blend into various societies without drawing too much attention to themselves. While their society appears peaceful and knowledge-driven, the El-Aurians experienced a catastrophic event in their history, the destruction of their homeworld at the hands of the Borg, the relentless cybernetic race that assimilates other species. Many El-Aurians were scattered across the galaxy as refugees following the Borg invasion, and the survivors struggled to rebuild their culture in the wake of this tragedy. This event is first referenced in Star Trek Generations, where it is revealed that Guinan was one of the few survivors of the Borg attack. Guinan, the most famous El-Aurian the most famous El-Aurian in Star Trek, is an enigmatic bartender aboard the USS Enterprise D. Introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation, she quickly became one of the most beloved recurring characters. Known for her wisdom, empathy, and ability to offer guidance, Guinan often serves as a moral compass for the crew, especially Captain Jean-Luc Picard. What makes Guinan special is her unique perspective on time and existence. Her people have a special sensitivity to temporal disruptions, allowing her to detect shifts in timelines that others cannot. In the episode Yesterday's Enterprise, for example, Guinan is able to sense that the timeline has been altered, even though no one else notices the change. This ability points to the El-Aurians' extraordinary connection to time and their longevity, which is another crucial aspect of their race. El-Aurian lifespan. One of the most fascinating things about the El-Aurians is their incredibly long lifespan. While the exact length of their lives has not been officially established in Star Trek canon, it's clear that they live for centuries, if not millennia. Guinan, for example, hints at her great age several times throughout The Next Generation. During the course of the series, it becomes apparent that she has lived for at least several centuries. In the episode Q, it is revealed that Guinan has had encounters with the powerful godlike entity known as Q, and their interactions imply that Guinan has been around for a very long time. Q himself, who is essentially immortal, refers to her with an air of familiarity that suggests they have known each other for many centuries. This alludes to the fact that the El-Aurians' lifespan could easily span several centuries, potentially even thousands of years, though the exact number remains ambiguous. Another clue to their longevity comes from Star Trek Generations, where it is revealed that Guinan was aboard the ship SS Lakul in the year 2293, decades before the events of The Next Generation. Given her appearance and vitality during The Next Generation, set in the 2360s, Guinan shows little sign of aging despite the significant passage of time. This longevity allows El-Aurians to accumulate vast amounts of knowledge and wisdom, which they use to their advantage as listeners and advisors. It's implied that El-Aurians, given their lengthy lives, develop a deep understanding of various cultures, philosophies, and scientific principles. Their long lifespan also contributes to their patient, thoughtful approach to life, which is a marked contrast to the more action-oriented species like humans or Klingons. The El-Aurians' role in Star Trek's universe. El-Aurians are a peaceful, non-aggressive species. They do not have a history of militarization, unlike many other races in the Star Trek universe. Their strength lies in their ability to understand others deeply and help mediate conflicts through empathy and insight. In fact, one could argue that the El-Aurians represent an ideal of wisdom and diplomacy that runs counter to the more combative instincts of other civilizations.